Well, it's not quite as sunny as it was yesterday, but look at all of the snow melt. We can see grass. Oh my gosh, and you can see these piles of snow have been drastically reduced. That is a good thing. It is a sign of hope, of warmer weather to come. It is not real warm outside though. It's only about 30 degrees or so, but we lost a lot of the snow due to the rain, but I think there's going to be some warm weather coming our way as well, which would be fantastic. We've got some of our geese friends hanging out over there. Also pretty happy to see some grass on the ground rather than mounds and mounds of snow. Hello, fellas. And look at this. Even more geese friends over here. Wow, I do not have to visit a zoo today. Nature is just coming to me. Well, hello there, and welcome to another beautiful day for an adventure here on Tommy Travels the Second. It is another great day for a movie roulette that we've been doing for the last few weeks, and it's been real fun. I used to go to movies quite a bit, but now I just don't have time running my YouTube channel, so this is a good way for me to get out and do that. And so the movie that we are seeing today is called Captive State. As usual, I have never heard of it, know nothing about it. And so we're gonna go check it out, and then I'll come out and do a review on a scale of Eat, Pray, Love to 10 when it's all done. And so this should be really fun, you guys. Please, if you're brand new to this channel, go ahead and hit subscribe so you don't miss out on a thing. And come on with me, let's go see what there is to see. Well, it's not terribly busy here at the movie theater today, but busier than it has been the last few weeks. And as usual, I'm running late, so we better get inside. Oh, look at this one. You know what that's called? It's called a Minnesota parking job. Oh my, look at this movie poster. After your first, life is never the same. That will not be a movie roulette. Makes me want to puke. And here's another movie that won't be a movie roulette, but not for the same reasons. I actually grew up in St. Louis, and I don't remember if I was living there at the time or not, but I do remember this story. Very inspiring story about this kid who was underwater for a very long time and managed to pull through. Everyone thought he was going to pass away, but a lot of prayer got him through it. Very inspiring story. So, if you've been paying attention, you know that I just saw a movie called Captive State. And this movie, as it turns out, stars John Goodman. And it is a movie about where the aliens come down to Earth to take over. And John Goodman plays the part of a cop. I'm not sure if he's actually a cop or a detective, but he's a cop, basically. And his partner dies in the whole part of the aliens taking over. And his partner had two sons, Raphael and Gabriel. Raphael being the older one, he starts a movement to win the Earth back from the aliens. See, the aliens in this movie, they don't just annihilate the whole human race, which most alien movies are like the aliens come down and if we don't defeat them, we're all going to be extinct. This one isn't like that. The aliens come down, the United States government surrenders to the aliens, and then what all takes place in this movie is 8 years into them taking over the government. They're called the legislators. They live underground, and they've walled off major cities like Chicago, which is the city this movie takes place in. And so that's how this movie is all centered, and kind of the basic plot of John Goodman's character and then these two sons who survived when the aliens took over, and leaving their father and John Goodman's partner dead. And so that's kind of where the movie starts off. And so I would like to start off by saying a few good things about this movie. One is it does a great job of drawing you in. Right from the very first scene, you are in the movie and you're like, oh wow, this is going to be a good movie. And so you start hanging on tight. That's how good the first scene is in the movie. And then also it stars John Goodman. And in Chicago, how much more authentic can you get than John Goodman in Chicago? And he does a great job of acting as usual. And I think this movie would have lost out on a lot if he had not been cast in the role that he was in. And so overall, I did like the movie. I think it's worth seeing because there's some things about it that make it unique to every other movie out there. I saw a movie a few weeks ago called Greta, and I didn't like that movie because it was such a paint by the numbers type of a script. A third grader could have written that script by now. It's been done so many times. This movie, on the other hand, you had no idea what was coming next. Mostly because you had no idea what the heck was going on now. And that draws you into a little bit of the negative of the movie, is that they take you right into the movie to start off, but then you have not much of an idea of what's going on. They give you a little background, how they say, okay, the aliens took over, we surrendered, it's 8 years later, and now we're here. And now they don't just tell you what's going on or set up anything, really. It's just, we're here. Now, you figure it out. And then people just start doing stuff, and it's one of those movies where, like, I see movies by myself, but probably most people see movies with somebody else, whether at home or at the theater. And I think of my parents when they watch movies together. Most of the time, fine. But sometimes when you see a movie like this, every few minutes, it's like, well now who is this guy? What did he say? Now, is he a good guy or a bad guy? Or it's one of those kind of movies. I'm left to try to figure this out all by myself. I don't have someone else to go, now, what is going on here? And so as you're trying to figure out all that out, other stuff is happening all of a sudden, because the scenes switch pretty quickly in this movie from over here to over there, and it gets a little confusing to follow. This is definitely one of those movies where you really have to pay attention to what's going on. This isn't a, hey, I'm just going to turn off my brain and see this movie, which you can do for most movies these days. You just sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Don't think about how unrealistic things are, and you could never do that in real life. You just shut it off. You know what's coming. You're happy with the ending, and that's it. This is not one of those. This is one where you have to be like, okay, now he's this guy, and this is what he's trying to do, and this is what's going on over here, and you have to be able to flip back and forth real quick to what's happening on all aspects of the movie. And if you don't pay attention to that, it can be kind of like, if you've seen a recent, like, Transformers movie, or maybe a superhero movie, they have those big finish endings where they have the battle royales, you know? Especially with Transformers movies, you know, you can barely tell the darn things apart to begin with, except for by the color. They all sound about the same. They're all 20 stories tall, and then they get in these fights. And they don't show it from far away so you can say, that's the good guy, that's the bad guy. No, they show it from right in there, right in the scene. Very extreme close-up. And then they jump cut to something else, and then there's an explosion, and then you see this thing get hit over here, and you have, after a while, no idea what's going on, if the good guy's winning or the bad guy's winning, and these things can go on for 15 minutes straight. It can give you a headache. It can make you not care about what's going on anymore and just want it to all be over with. And that's how this can happen. You can get that same type of a feeling in this movie as well, except for the saving grace that at least in this movie, it does slowly let out plot points where you can go, oh, okay, now I see what's happening here. They're doing this. This is what's going on. Okay, whew, all right, sweet. Transformers movies don't do that. So I was glad to see that this movie gives you a little bit of relief from that by saying, okay, here you go. This is what's happening. And it does that a little bit throughout the movie, which really kept me going as I was getting frustrated. The other issue that I have with this movie is that I wish they would have spent a little bit more time setting up the characters and the plot line before they just jump ahead 8 years. You know, there's one thing to not know what's coming next, but there's another thing to just not know anything. You know, like, for example, the two kids, the brothers, that are the sons of the partner that got killed of John Goodman's. It would have been nice to see them interact a little bit as kids so you have a better understanding of who they are 8 years later. Or the aliens. They don't show very much of them in the beginning at all. And so you just get a few little description lines saying they've taken over and we've surrendered to them and they were really scary and now they're controlling our government. And but you don't really... That's great. You told us that's what happened, but it would have been nice to see why they were so scary. How did they get to the point where we said, okay, we're dead if we don't surrender here? It would have been nice to see how ominous that was and give us a little background onto that time in the history of this movie. Otherwise, the way they did it is they just said, okay, here we are. Now let's go. And that doesn't make it as interesting for the viewer as it could have been. And so this movie gets a 6 on a scale of Eat, Pray, Love to 10. And it gets a little bit of an extra boost because of the fact that John Goodman is in it and he does a very good job. He kind of carries the movie. Also, the beginning of it, well worth seeing. And then at a certain point into the movie, there's a plot twist that occurs that makes you kind of go, oh, I get it. I see where they're going here. And for those 3 reasons, it's at least worth seeing the movie. If it's on Netflix or if you're a fan of John Goodman and these types of alien types of movies, it's worth seeing. I would check it out for yourself. Not something I would tell you to rush out and see no matter what, but it's worth checking out for sure. It makes you think there towards the end as well. You don't walk out of there like at the end of Independence Day, you know, like, America, America! It's not like that. It's a little bit slower, a little bit harder to figure out, and so that's why it doesn't rank as high, but with John Goodman, it's still a pretty good movie. And so this has been another successful Movie Roulette Sunday here on Tommy Travels the Second. And we have reviewed Captive State, which got a 6 on a scale of Eat, Pray, Love to 10. And if you guys liked what you saw here today, go ahead and hit like on my YouTube channel. While you're at it, go ahead and hit subscribe and the little bell notification next to it so you can be the first to know when a new adventure comes out. And thank you guys so much for the support that you've given me so far. And until next time, I hope to catch you on the flip side.